Today, I want to touch on a subject that I have mentioned before, but it's an important one, and we need to discuss it again and again. And it's this: talk is cheap. In 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 20, the Apostle Paul writes this. He says, "For the kingdom of God is not a matter of talk, but of power." Well, the Apostle Paul had written these words in response to some people in the church at Corinth who'd gotten kind of full of themselves and were doing a lot of big talking about what they thought and about what they wanted. And they had begun to stand in opposition to Paul, who had started the church and then moved on to another place to start another church. But in truth, these people weren't living their faith in the way they should. And because of that, all kinds of problems had arisen in the church. They'd gotten wrapped up in rivalries and in some divisions. And the truth is that they just weren't treating each other very well and in the way that they should since Paul left. And in many ways, the power had gone out of their faith and out of their church. So Paul wrote to them and said that he was coming back and they would straighten things out. And he said this line, "For the kingdom of God is not a matter of talk, but of power." And Paul was basically saying talk is cheap, but the things of God are powerful. And when you live into those things, it empowers your faith and your ministry, and good things happen. And Paul had confidence. He had confidence in the power of his faith and confidence in the power of his ministry because he knew that he truly sought to live into the things that he believed and the things that he taught. And what Paul talks about here is actually still a huge problem today, because the reality is that it's so easy for us to go around saying nice religious sounding things and to post Christian memes on the internet and to think of ourselves as very spiritual and religious, but then to really not seek to live our faith each day in the things that we do and say, in the way that we treat other people, and in truly seeking to know God. It's just easy to fall into coming to church and singing the songs and praying the prayers and saying all the right things, but the rest of the week really just ignoring God and doing whatever it is that we want. And sadly, really sadly, a lot of the people who do this then turn around and they wonder why their faith isn't more meaningful, isn't more powerful. And they'll often blame the church and say things like, "Well, I'm just not being fed, and I don't feel like the worship is touching me." And in some cases that may be true, but often the real core problem is that they're not seeking to live their faith. They're not living into the powerful things of God. They're just talking about them. And talk is cheap. So I want to call us to seek to live our faith every day, to live the things that Jesus taught in the way that we speak, in the things that we do, in the way that we treat others, and in seeking to truly pursue God and know God and have a relationship with Him. Because if we do these things instead of just talking about them, then we will live into a powerful faith and good things will happen. For the kingdom of God is not a matter of talk, but of power.